Let me speak of ordinary time in praise of ordinary days and ordinary Sundays. That's a technical phrase. Those of you who grew up Catholic or Episcopalian may remember what ordinary time is. It's everything from Pentecost to Advent. It's half the year during which nothing much happens. No festivals, no holidays, no seasons of special colors, no grand celebrations. It's the long slog of ordinary time. Like life itself, when you think about it, most days that we live are pretty much the same, aren't they? Just try to remember a Tuesday from 2 months ago that wasn't special. And the weeks are like that too. One Sunday blends into the other. The greatness of the choir is reliably great from Sunday to Sunday. Which Sunday did they sing that? I don't recall. I depend upon this sameness, you should know, because we preachers only have so much to say, and I rely upon your forgetting it reliably so that you won't call me upon it all the time. The sameness of the days, of the weeks, of the Sundays. But it is troubling to think of our lives just vanishing out of the rearview mirror. The days that were precious seem to have vanished, not only in time, but from memory. I was worried about this, so I began to keep a diary this year. That was my New Year's resolution. I've been pretty faithful with it. I forget a day or every now and then hurry back to make sure I fill it in. And I thought I'd fill it with all my deep thoughts and profound feelings and make sure a record of my soul was there. But I discovered that keeping a diary only reminds me of how very ordinary every day is. I tell myself in my writing that I slept well or poorly, whether I exercised well or pulled a muscle. I try to remember that I went to meetings, which I do a lot. I do put in a few thoughts, but they're few and far between. Most of my days are ordinary. My diary now records in detail precisely how similar and forgettable every day is. One of the glories of my predecessor, Duncan Littlefair, were in the words he shared every week that start with, "This is indeed a day which the Lord has made." And then he proceeded to enlarge upon that, ending with a phrase that is powerfully present in this community, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. How do we do that? How do we give dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days, not just the special ones? How do we make the ordinary days dignified, meaningful, worthy, and joyful? I'm not sure I know, because even when I make the effort to record what happened, to analyze my thoughts, to esteem my days, they turn out to be no more momentous from one week than to another. I felt like somehow I should be living more meaningfully. I should be doing more stuff. I should be thinking deeper thoughts, feeling stronger feelings, wrenching meaning out of the passage of the sands through the hourglass. Then I had a subversive thought, one that turns out to be completely unoriginal, of course. So when I encountered it in another person, a better writer than me, Jenkin Lloyd Jones, a Unitarian minister from the 19th century over there in Wisconsin, and by the way, the uncle of Frank Lloyd Wright. He writes once long ago, "Anyone who imagines that bliss is normal is going to waste a lot of time running around shouting that he has been robbed. The fact is that most putts don't drop, most beef is tough, most children grow up to be just like people. Most successful marriages require a high degree of mutual toleration, and most jobs are more often dull than otherwise. Life is just like an old-time rail journey, delays, sidetracks, smoke, dust, cinders, and jolts, interspersed only occasionally by beautiful vistas and thrilling bursts of speed." Martin Buber, the great Jewish philosopher, started out wanting to study mysticism, those people who sit and contemplate God and have these close, rapturous moments. And as he studied, he discovered that even the best of them might have had 2 or 3 in a lifetime. And he figured out that the cost-benefit analysis of pursuing religious experience was a very shabby one. You're going to spend most of your life not being very close to God at all. Mother Teresa, in her letters, revealed that she went years, decades, profoundly doubting that God was real. Now, that's tragic, but it's also rather more typical than not. And believe it or not, even famous people admit that they too have to put on their pants one leg at a time, though they may be made of fancy wools. Most of them have bad days, just like the rest of us. So we should accept the observation that life is pretty much ordinary as a gift, not a curse. Don't we all tend to imagine that life is more lively for someone over there in the spotlight? Yeah, we see the athletes achieving, and the entrepreneurs succeeding, and the artists creating, and the monks contemplating, and we wonder, what's wrong with us? And I'm here to tell you nothing. They're just like all of us. Their lives are ordinary too, most of the time. And rather than try and find ways to make life more extraordinary, we need to be more benevolent, to give honor, endow, if you will, the ordinary with the power of the extraordinary. Instead of wanting our days to be more extraordinary, we should be delighted that they are ordinary at all. Even though on this day in 1782, King Buddha Yodfa Chulalukhe began to build his palace in Siam, no doubt the monks around the corner chanted their daily sutras just like they did the day before, and then went out to beg for food in the street. So how can we redeem this ordinariness that deserves our honor? And the Holy One finished on the seventh day the work which the Holy One did, and ceased on the seventh day from doing all the work, and the Holy One blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. We all know this story, right? In that passage from Leviticus, it said, "Keep my Sabbaths." Well, whether that actually happened is immaterial. But because of that story, a people decided that every seventh day they would just not work, which, by the way, no one else in the world was doing at that time. In those days, everyone worked all the time, no days off. So if you like your weekends, thank unions. And if you like unions, they should thank the Jews. Because the idea of the week begins here, that every seventh day starts the clock over again. The ubiquity of the 7-day week starts right there. But I want to talk about this seventh day thing, this Sabbath thing. The word Sabbath is a corruption of a Hebrew word, Shabbat, which doesn't mean rest, by the way. It means cease, stop, don't do it. And that's exactly the point. On the Sabbath, if you're an observant Jew, you spend your day doing as little as possible that resembles work. That can be quite a challenge, of course. It's not easy not doing things, isn't it? What do the Quakers say as their mantra? Don't just do something, sit there. It's hard. And so they have to work hard to avoid doing things like lighting a fire, or cooking, or throwing a switch, or writing a letter, or buying or selling. All these things sound like great fun, but the point is not to have fun on the Sabbath. It is to stop doing things. But why? After all, it sounds very boring. And that's exactly the point. After all that grand creating, let there be light, let there be firmaments, let there be continents, you can just imagine stars racing up into the sky, moons dashing about, continents rising and falling, oceans heaving, animals flitting about. At some point, God said, I'm done. I'm now going to just take a look. And that's what, and God beheld all that had been created. In other words, the day that counts the most every week is not the day of creating, but the day of noticing. The day of not doing is sacred, not the day of doing. Tell me, when we estimate our lives, how do we estimate them? How much money we made, how much work we got done, how many flowers are growing, how many shirts I ironed, how many cans I put up, how many beds I made, how many sermons I preached, how many notes you sang. And yet the explicit commandment at the beginning of the Bible is that the most sacred thing you can do is nothing. Just notice. Notice, I have to reach down and get my glasses. I knocked them off the shelf.